Hey, well, really warm welcome, everybody. My name's Nay, and I come from England. I live in Southampton. Is that working? Yeah, great. Married to John, and I've got two little girls, Anya and Agnes. They're 10 and 7, and they're both poorly at home. So I'm having a nice time here on my own, and my poor husband is looking after them. We're really delighted that you're with us today. Kenny, my dear old friend here, is co-running this track with me, and together we run the Seeker Bible Study Network. That is a network for staff and students across Europe, and if you're from a church today, or you're none of those, you're welcome. Our network is meant to equip others to introduce their friends to Jesus through the Gospels. We're really passionate that we can do that. We've seen it in our own lives. We're passionate that through friendship and through introducing people to Jesus through the Word, we'll see God be really powerful in the way he speaks to people. And so over the next 3 days, we want to just think about that. This morning is all about context. What's the context that this can happen in? Tomorrow, Becky Pippett's going to talk about top tips from what she's learned on Seeker Bible Studies over the last 4 decades. So that will be a treat. And then the last day, Kenny is going to give us some resources on how to actually do that and remind us the power of God's word once again. So we're in for a treat, but this isn't a sermon. We want you to discuss as well. There's a lot of wisdom and experience in this room. So is there anyone here that has never done a Seeker Bible study before? And what I mean, Christy, hang on, a bit quick. What I mean by a Seeker Bible study is simply looking at the Gospels or a part of the Bible with someone who's not yet a Christian. That could be an Uncover study. It could be in an Alpha course of some sorts. It could be Christianity Explored. It could simply be a story from the Gospel. Is there anyone here that's never done that before, just to help Kenny and I? So Katie, one other hand, and Christy. Okay, so 3. Who has done it here for more than 10 years and seen people come to know Jesus through Seeker Bible studies? Anyone? Lynette, Shemaiah, Katya, yeah. Tim, and I'm sure you're older than 10 years. Okay, all right. So in this room, we have a wealth of experience. We have people that have never done it before. We've got people that could come and do this training. So we're a really broad group. And I just want to ask your patience for that. But first of all, one of the big emphasis we want to give you is about the importance of friendship and relationship and evangelism. And so we cannot start this track without saying hi to each other. So what I want you to do is just to stand up quick, one at a time, just say your name and say where you're from. We've had a nice broad example of why you are here collectively, so we don't need to discuss that. But let's just do that, and then we're going to move into small groups. We're going to move these chairs. Afterwards, please put them back. And as you sit in your group, please don't sit with people you know. And have a look around for people that look like they've been doing this for more than a few years. So those are Katya, Shemaiah, Sheremy, Tierman, Ranyard probably at the back, Lynette, Debbie. Okay, so go for it. Stand up who you are, say hi. Brilliant. So I want you to move into groups of 5 or 6. Make sure there are people you don't know. Make sure there's someone that looks like they've done this for more than 10 years. Okay? Go for it. You've got about 1 minute to do this, so move quick. As I said, a real emphasis we want to have is not just on Seeker Bible studies. So it's not just on reading the Gospels with our friends, because for many of us, the problem is, well, how do we do that? That happens to famous evangelists. Doesn't happen to me. So we really want to think about the context. And as we think about that and we dive into that a bit more, I'm hoping actually that you'll find more and more opportunities to read the Bible with your friends or with strangers that have become friends. But for me, it's really important we think about the context. So the context that I'm talking about, 3 things that I think are really important, is creative public evangelism. And what I mean by that is anything that's really widespread. So that could be online, it could be TikTok, it could be an evangelistic talk at a mission, it could be social media, it could be a song or a spoken word poem. So creative and public. If you're doing that as a national movement, you're reaching lots and lots of people. And we heard last night from Shania how it was through a flyer, through public, she first heard about Jesus. But also it's really, really important we think about friendship and community. So we want to be recognising that people are human beings, that we relate to them. But also we want to be bringing our non-Christian friends into our community of Christian friends, because often friends will say to me, but no, it just doesn't work, I can't believe this is true. But as they begin to meet other Christians, they begin to see how the good news of Jesus changes lives, and they begin to believe it, they begin to see that it's possible. So we're going to be thinking about creative public evangelism, about friendship and community, and prayer. We always forget prayer, I don't know why. But we always forget prayer, and so I think it's really essential we're praying for our friends and praying for them to come to know Jesus, praying for more opportunities to see them. A live example for me, is on Sunday, our church is an international church, and mostly people from South Asia. And so for the first time, we decided to hold a festival of light, not for Halloween, but to redeem Diwali. If you know Diwali, it's a festival of light that's celebrated. And so what we did instead is we had a big, big celebration. We had an evangelistic talk. We had loads and loads of food. We had dancing. We had henna tattoos. We had loads of crafts for the kids. Gave out thousands of flyers in the area. And during the night, I was serving sweets. That was my job. And there was a lovely lady, and she was smiling at me. So I said, oh, hi, my name's Nay, what's yours? And she said, Prabeen. And I said, have you been to this church before? And she said, no. And I said, well, how did you find out about it? She said, my friend lives on the street, and she got a flyer, and she thought, because I'm South Asian, I'd like to come, because this is my culture. It's Diwali, it's a festival of light. So her non-Christian friend gave her a flyer. Their whole family came, and her daughter loves dancing and playing the sitar, and so they came really for the dancing, and they went next door. They had a great time dancing, and I was thinking, how on earth do we carry on this friendship? I can't just think, well, this is enough. They've come, great, full stop. She then said, how can I participate in your church? And often people from a Sikh Hindu background who think lots and lots of gods are the way to Jesus or the way to life are quite happy to go to church, go to the temple, go to whatever. So she said, how can I participate? And I said, well, actually, on Wednesday night, we're starting these new Bhangra and Bollywood dance classes for women. And she said, my daughter really wants to come. And so I said, well, I'll ask if a 13-year-old can come on her own. And they said, no, she needs a guardian. The mum said, well, I can't go because I work. And I said, well, I'll be the guardian to this daughter. So now I'm going to some Bhangra and Bollywood class, and if you know me, which you don't, I can't dance. But I really like this lady, and the option is to just ignore her and just to say, well, she's come to church, job done, tick. Or to say, actually, I want to become friends with this woman, I want to invest in them, I want to become the guardian to this child at Bollywood dancing. But what's really funny in all of this is a very good friend of ours, we went out for lunch on Monday for her 50th, and I said, the girls had henna tattoo everywhere. And she said, what's that? And I said, we did a festival of light at church. And we did dancing. And she said, I love Bhangra and Bollywood dancing. And I was like, well, do you want to come to this class on Wednesday night at our church? And she said, yes. Before I knew, she had signed up to the class and then put in a mum's WhatsApp with no other Christians. And she's not a Christian. Nay and I are going to this class at her church. Who's coming? So in all of this, yes, it's just a Bhangra and Bollywood class, but this friend has never come to my church before. Praveen and her family have never been into a church before. And so as we begin engaging and interacting with them, I want to really think about friendship, community. I'm so grateful that we had a creative public evangelistic night that brought them in, but it doesn't stop there. It's much, much more than that. I would love to read the Gospels with her. I'd love to get to know her and her family. I'd love for them to come back and find out about Jesus, but I need to be committed to friendship and community as much as creative public evangelism. And I need to be praying. So what I want you to do in your groups is to begin to discuss. Let me get the questions. Okay, in your groups, we're particularly focusing on Seeker Bible studies and thinking about that. I want you to reflect and evaluate on the last year. Which of these have you seen in your city or country? Have you seen students discovering more about Jesus one-to-one, in small groups, after a public event, praying for their friends? So just have a discuss. Each of you reflect and think about your own situation, discuss it, and why do you think that is? Okay? So particularly thinking about public evangelism, small group evangelism, so doing a Seeker Bible study in a group of 5, and then one-to-one. Great, go for it. Okay, let's come back together. There is so much experience and wealth in this room, and as I look around and see old friends like Katia talking and thinking, I've read your prayer letters, I know what you do, and I know that what you're saying is going to be really useful because you've been doing this for so long. And one thing we really just want to encourage you is this isn't just an exercise, a conference that you come and learn. This is about just refreshing yourself on some deep convictions that God is at work in the world, and he will work through you in your weakness as you're committed to friends and Seeker Bible studies. So first of all, hands up. Anyone seen students discovering more about Jesus through one-to-ones? Anyone seen that? Hands up if you've seen it. Reinhard, have you not seen that? Yeah. Okay. In small groups? Okay. After a public event? How about students praying for their friends? Okay, so it's really interesting. There's a variety of people in this room, and that's why we want to think about these things together so that we can learn from each other. So would anyone be willing to come and share some testimony on how you've seen students one-to-one sharing the gospel with their friends through the scriptures? Would someone be willing to come? Tim, and come on. Come and share.
We started out with the question, so do you want to be a witness? Yes, but how? So I was preaching for the CU, and I was saying, if you have that feeling, I have that feeling too. Yeah? So why not meet up and talk about it? So how do we do this? So we come into the point of is do I have the time or the eagerness to start a relationship with somebody? And one of the girls, it took about 2 years, and it started maybe slowly going to a public event, and then trying to dare to hand out flyers and so, which makes you vulnerable because now you are the Christian handing out flyers. But we talked about, does that change somebody in somebody's lives? Mm-hmm. So she was now focusing and praying, God, please give me somebody who I can have a relationship with for a longer time that might start to know Christ through me. And the story is beautiful. So at a certain point, she just felt somebody in the park looked lost and lonely. And she said, well, you know what? I'm just going to go to her and tell her you look lost and lonely. If you want, maybe I can help. I don't know. She didn't say, and therefore I'm going to give you Jesus. But it was actually something the person reacted to, wanted to. So this became a relationship of 2 to 3 years. And last year, so again, so in Corona we did a lot of one-to-one in the houses, invite a friend for dinner and talk about Jesus. And during that moment, this girl gave her life to Jesus. So some of the things that were very interesting is that she made time in her busy schedule to actually become a friend of somebody, stayed with that person for more than 3 years, accepting that not tomorrow will be a conversion, but actually in these 3 years becoming friends, so she knows the other person and she knows the questions. And therefore really celebrated. I still remember the moment we celebrated that she came to faith. So, and this is a small story, one story, but...
Brilliant, thank you. How about someone sharing some story about small groups? To Katia, go for it.
I'm from Belarus, and our small group is not very small, it's big. Though my room where I live is small, so it's a small room, but we have 35 students coming to Bible study, and it's a joint space between kitchen where we cook and room where we sit everywhere on the floor and sofas and chairs. So we are all there together, but this is a special place for international students after they very tired mentally, physically, emotionally, living abroad and feeling lonely because they're away from home. They come to my home where there is always warm, people always smiling, accepting and welcoming them. They have hot food, dinner, and then Bible study. What is special about our Bible study that we have students coming from all kinds of backgrounds, Hindu, Muslim, communist, Buddhist, atheist, Catholic, and when they are just come there, what is special about our small group that I explain them that why it is beneficial for them to study Bible with us. I said because when you're in university, you just listen to the lecturer. You are not encouraged to ask any questions. So you just sit there. Even if you disagree, you can't say anything. But here we are, so different people coming from different backgrounds, and we can disagree. And please do disagree because we're all equals. There is no this lecturer here. We want to learn from each other, and we want to know who we are, where do we come from, and what is the meaning of life. And that is why we read Bible in order to learn about what Christianity says about these big questions of life. And as soon as I tell this, then this how the electrical atmosphere is it's smooth. Students feel relaxed that they can disagree, and they do disagree. And I love about this our Bible study that all around the room there are small groups in different languages, Turkmen languages, Arabic, French, Russian, English, and this is a special place when students from the closest countries for the gospel can read about Jesus, can learn about him. And then our team members who are leaders in those small groups, they meet with them one-on-one during the week, with those who are the most interested, who ask the most deep questions. Then we do follow up with them one-on-one.
So we work with international students for whom, when they arrive in the UK, most of them have never heard the gospel before. And they come to a public event. Very often the language and the English that's used, they actually don't understand. But many of the public events in the UK start with food in some ways, and we had a Chinese student who came along, and he just came for food. And people talked to him after the talk, and they said, do you understand what was being said? He said, no. They said, do you want to know more? Oh, yes, why not, if there's food? So then they invited him to a small group, and he joined in a small group Bible study and still didn't understand. But he said he really liked how people talked to each other. He said he saw how people respected each other and listened to him, and he could, like Katya said, he could disagree and nobody shouted at him, nobody rejected him, and for him that was very powerful. And basically this student he moved from city to city in the UK with his studies. He moved from Scotland down to northern England, and every time he moved city, people connected him with Christians in that city. And in one city he even had to chase the worker and said, I really want to know what's in the Bible but the worker was busy. But he was so persistent that in the end, it was the international student worker who said, okay, I better meet with you. But we just heard last week that through starting at an event that he didn't understand to going to different Bible studies and then one-to-one, he gave his life to the Lord last week. So praise the Lord for that.
Thanks, Lynette. Now, this last one that we always forget. Anyone got a story of watching students praying for their friends? Laura, have you seen anything in UCCF? Yeah.
Yeah, hello. So I work for UCCF in the UK, and one of the CUs, the Christian unions that I work with, is Warwick. And one of the leaders there particularly, he loves the Bible. He just absolutely loves it, which is amazing. And he met someone, I think, recently potentially at a public event, who he's been reading the book of James with. I don't know if they've been reading it kind of in person, but I think maybe they've been reading it separately and then just like messaging back and forth about like what different passages mean. And we just got to the bit, I'm also reading that with the leaders, so it was quite funny that he was then reading it with another friend. And they just got to the passage on faith and deeds, and what it looks like to what the place of works and what the place of faith are. And Josh, the leader, shared this with myself and another leader in a meeting that we were having, and then asked us if we could pray together for this friend that he was reading James with. Now, as far as we know, this friend hasn't become a Christian yet, but prayer is something that's really on Josh's heart, and he prays very regularly for the people that he's reading the Bible with. And that's been an inspiration to me, as well as many others, I'm sure.
Great, welcome Becky, our speaker for day 2. So back to where we were right at the start, we want to be thinking about the context that Seeker Bible Studies fit into. We want to be thinking about prayer, we want to be thinking about friendship and community, and we want to be thinking about creative public evangelism. And as your groups are doing those things regularly, routinely, keeping on, our hope and prayer is that you'll start to open up the scriptures with students. You'll point them to Jesus Christ through the Gospels. And we've heard 3 stories now, haven't we, of that happening. So we're not talking about magic. We're not talking about things that are impossible. These are happening in this room, and they have been happening for decades. But when I asked you, have you seen students finding out about Jesus through one-to-one, through small group, through public evangelism, we didn't all put our hand up to all 3, did we? So there's a bit of work to be done, okay? And that's where it's good for us to assess. Because until we assess and reevaluate, we're never going to bring change. And that's what our hope and prayer is, that you will be change makers. So not just that you go back and read the Gospels with one student, but you go back and change your groups or your national movement or, Katie, your church, some people in your village, that you get others to come alongside you, other Christians to get involved in this vision too, and you spread the vision. So we're going to pause and just think a little bit more about where this vision comes from. So open your Bibles to John 17. Okay, so let me read for you John 17, verse 20. And for me, this is a really fundamental passage as we think about evangelism. So as I'm reading, just think to yourself, where does this talk about prayer? Where does it talk about relationship, community? Where does it talk about clear public communication? Those are the 3 categories we want to be thinking about. So let me read. My prayer is not for them alone. And can I just say, these are some of Jesus' final words to his disciples, okay? My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am and to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you have loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them too. So in groups, what does this say about community, about communication, about prayer? Those are the things we really want to think about today, the context of Seeker Bible Studies. Okay, so just enjoy that in your groups for a few minutes. So because there is so much wealth in this room, I want to hear from you as much as you hearing from me. So first of all, if you've got something to say, just come up to the microphone. What does this say about prayer? Who wants to jump up and just share what their group said? Oh, was that a move? No. Someone that's not spoken yet, come and share.
I guess we looked at the first verse and just thinking about my prayer is not for them alone, I pray. And we were just reflecting that we know the message of the gospel as Jesus prayed for the future generations, that you will believe in me through their message. And I guess it is that sort of baton handing on, changing hands generation to generation. But how amazing that I guess Jesus was praying for us to know in this last conversation with his disciples.
Absolutely, and also I find deep comfort that he's praying for those who will believe in Jesus through their message. So he's praying for our friends. He's praying for Pradim that I talked about. He's praying for Pradim's husband and children. Jesus is praying for our friends. So let's really think carefully about how we encourage our students to pray for their friends and remind them that our motivation and model is Jesus praying for our friends. And actually that means when we're weak and tired and we don't know the answers to their questions or we feel a failure, Jesus is still praying for our friends. So we can draw deep, deep courage from this, just from this first verse, that Jesus is praying for us and he's praying for our friends. But what's he praying? What do we think about community? What do we learn in these verses about community? What is Jesus praying? Somebody...
I was going to let someone else go because you've already heard from me, but I just pointed out how much he talks about unity in community. So the amount of times he says that they may be one, that they may be united, that they would have unity just as I have unity with the Father. So yeah, something about unity in community being vital.
Anybody else want to add? Great, come up. Say your name and where you're from as well.
Arjen from the Netherlands. Yeah, I will add to that I think that this call of this prayer of Jesus for unity, and the unity itself is a way of communication, because it said he prays that his students, his disciples may be one, and then verse 23, then the world will know. So there is a very strong communication in that, and we see that happening in Groningen as well. If I see first I have to say, I'm from the Netherlands, and we have quite a questionable history about unity in Christianity. There are a lot of denominations, and we tend to split quite quickly from one another. And I think that is a typical Dutch problem that's in our history. But what I see, especially in student communities, that students are overcoming that history, and that they're working together from all kinds of backgrounds. And I think there is a very there is something very powerful in that, especially in a context and culture where divisions are broadened, gets wider. That people from all different backgrounds are working together on a certain project. So there is definitely communication in that.
So how we live and how we relate says something about our God, says something about our message in and of itself. So can evangelism ever be divorced from relationship, even if that's making friends with a stranger? No, that's not evangelism, is it? At the very heart of who God is, Father, Son and Spirit, and we see that clearly here, there is a relationship. At the very heart of our evangelism and Seeker Bible Studies, we want to be relational. Now, Kenny and I run at IFE's Urgent Prayer WhatsApp for Ukraine. We have 6 groups praying with about 1,200 people in, 1 in French, 5 in English. And really sadly, as of a week ago, we've been spammed every day by some cults. People are getting messages every day. Hi, I've recognised you're in this group. I'm a Christian too. I love the Bible. Do you want to come to a meeting with me? Now, it's really annoying, me as the owner of the group, but as a form of evangelism, what do you think about that? It's terrible, isn't it? By sending someone a WhatsApp, and the other thing is all these messages we get are just copy and paste. So there's no individualness, there's no friendship, there's no relationship, and they're genuinely thinking that this is a form of evangelism and outreach. And it struck me, the very difference to that compared to this. The Father heart of God is Father, Son, and Spirit giving themselves for other people. So we need to think about community, we need to think about how we live with other people and what that says. What about communication? Thanks so much for starting us on the communication. What else does this say about communication? Someone that's not spoken, maybe from Katya's group. Can you send someone up, Katya? If there's something not added on Unity Community, Katya, come and share that as well.
And we talked about it being, there's the revelation, like Jesus is revealing the Father, and we kept saying like, oh, this is about Jesus, we have to keep him central. And then what struck me was in like verse 23 and 26, that the knowing, you make him known, so the revelation, but it's in order that they know that God loves them, and then that love is in them. And so I think we were quite struck about that. And Angela shared a testimony even earlier about a guy who had come and he had all the intellectual knowledge and then actually left for a while and then came back and said, he goes, oh, it had to convict my heart. And it got into his heart and made that journey. But for me, I think personally, I'm just struck by the scripture here. I'm like, it's not to be right. It's like that they would actually experience God's love and it would be in them. And I'm like, oh, that's powerful. Like I want to know Jesus' love more and more, right? Like that feels like good news to me. So I think the communication is a holistic kind of thing, that it's like that intellectual knowledge, but it goes experientially into their lives and to actually receive the communication of God's love for them.
Thank you. Anyone got anything else burning to say? So I think this passage is amazing. As we think about communication, look up to verse 20. People will believe when this message is shared. It says that. Jesus is praying that our friends will believe through their message. That's your message. So as you share the message, people will believe. So the communication of the message is essential. It's not just how we live, it's what we say as well. But also, as we've heard, Jesus was sent, and it was through the being sent that the world got to know about God the Father. The world does not know you, and I know you, and they know that you have sent me. So it's in the sending of a person, not just Jesus, but in the sending of you to your friends, to your community, to your city where there are no others. It's in that sending that people will find out about Jesus. The communication, verse 26, I have made you known to them. So it's making Jesus known to our friends in our context, and that's different for everyone, but I want to urge you to do that in a creative way. So Monday night, on our driveway, it's Halloween in the UK, and I write stories about bats and spiders and pumpkins, and I leave them curious about Jesus. If you want to know how I do that, I'll show you. Last year we gave out 600. And we did a giant spider's web that people climbed through, and we gave sweets. And it was so much fun, my daughter got really embarrassed and said, Mum, it was too much fun. Too many kids came. So I don't know what we're going to do on Monday. But that's how we do it. That's how Nay and John and Anya and Agnes do it. We make Jesus known on our driveway, but we make him known in a way that is relevant to our friends, attractive, generous, humorous, fun, and leaves them wanting to know more. So what is this message? That the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. The message is that the love for the Father has for Jesus is known to us and to our friends. That's the message. And how much has the Father loved Jesus? Right at the bottom, it says, verse 24, I want those you've given me to be with me where I am and to see my glory, the glory you've given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. So the Father loved the Son before the creation of the world. He wants Jesus to go to the world, to let them know about the Father, to let them know that his love for them is the same as his love for Jesus. And that's the same for us today. And that's the context that we want to do Seeker Bible Studies into. And so the two things we're going to look at before we finish is friendship and creative public evangelism. Okay, so just take a breath, stand up and have a wiggle if you need to. This last year in May, we decided to run a book club by a guy called Sam Chan. He's written a book called How to Talk About Jesus. We ran it online and we had students and staff from across Europe join us. And it was brilliant because we stopped and we paused and we thought about friendship and community for 4 weeks. Everyone read and then we discussed every single week together. And one of the things I love that Sam says is this: if you're going to their things, they will come to your things. If you hang out together normally, then this is just one of many things that you would be doing together. Suddenly it's not as weird or awkward to invite your friends to one of your things, even if it's a church thing. And so what we did in this book club is we wanted to help students really think about friendship for the first time. And you know, as they did, interestingly, some of them had more opportunities to start reading the Bible with their friends. So I want you just to stop and pause and think about the students in your group. What kind of friendships do they have? Are they just Christian friends? Are they non-Christian friends? And what kind of level of discussion do they have with those friends? Okay, so just enjoy that conversation for a few minutes. What kind of friendships do they have? What kind of level of discussion do they have with those people? Okay. Okay, sorry to cut the conversation. On a kind of scale of 0 to 10, on a scale of 0 to 10, how engaged do you think your students are with non-Christian friends at university? So 0 is really low, 10 is high. Scale of 0 to 10, how engaged are the students in your groups with their non-Christian friends? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 0 is low, they're not engaged with their non-Christian friends, 10 is high. 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow, so everyone's about 3 or 4? 2? What were you? Yeah. Great. Okay, so we've got a real mixture in the room, so we need to help students think about friendship. We think it's just easy, but unless we're intentional in our friendship, then it's not really friendship, it's just convenience. And mission doesn't happen when we've just got convenience on our mind, does it? So we're just going to pause a little, and I'm just going to show a few things that I've used in the past that I recommend you think about using in your national movement. Have a think about some names. You can write it down if you want. This is you, your life. Who are some of these people in your life? If you've got pen and paper, just do some circles. So BFF is best friends forever. Close friends, fun friends, neighbours, acquaintances. This is just a bit of fun. But can you write down some names of people in your life, okay? So you've got 1 minute to do that. Think about these loose categories of conversation. There are lots of different ones of these. Number 1 is small talk. Number 2 is fact disclosure. Number 3 is common ground. And number 4 is personal feelings. So small talk, fact disclosure, common ground, and personal feelings. If those seem to work for you, could you put those next to the names of your friends, so the kind of conversations you have, whether it's just small talk, whether it's just disclosing facts, whether you share personal feelings, whether you just discuss common ground. So discussing common ground would be like, oh, how many lengths did the children swim tonight in the swimming lesson? Okay. Personal feelings would be like, oh, let me tell you about my day. I think you get the rest. Okay, so try and put one of those categories next to each friend. You've got 30 seconds to do this. Absolutely, small talk. You're not good at that, Katya. Fact disclosure, so just meet me at 10 o'clock. Common ground, we like our swimming lessons together and personal feelings. Or Katya, what did you do today? What did you do today? I went to a seminar, I had coffee, then I had my lunch, as opposed to, oh, Nay's seminar was so boring and I got really excited at lunchtime because I sat by Katie McBurney, okay? So what I want you to do now, don't worry too much if you've not got it accurate. The point is what level of conversation you have. Can you circle the friends on your rings that are not yet Christians? So circle those that are not yet Christians, okay? And what I want you to reflect upon is looking at your own circles. Do you have deep conversations with Christians, non-Christians? What kind of conversations do you have with your friends? Okay, so just have a look yourself and reflect upon what your circles do, what they say. Are you having close conversations with non-Christian friends? Do you have any close friends? Do you have lots of acquaintances? What does this say about your life? Are we really living this John 17 vision of making Jesus known to people in conversation? Are we really sent out to our non-Christian friends and neighbours and colleagues? I don't want to look at your circles, but it would be easy for me to have lots of acquaintances, like lots of the mums at the school gate. We have this small talk, and I see them every day, but they're never going to move into the close friends or the BFFs. And probably most of my close friends are those that I have these personal feelings conversations with. They're probably Christians. So am I talking openly and deeply with my non-Christian friends? Do I even have close non-Christian friends? Do I have Christian fun friends? So for all of us, the circles will look different at different points of life. And the point is to be really honest about the kind of friendships we have and to be intentional in our friendships. I think we've forgotten the art of friendship. And it's just about convenience. And so it's really important that we help students think about that. And I think the best way is to get them reading. So here are two excellent books. One of them has the author in the room. And I've read both of these with students. We've read together on our own, chapters at a time, and then come to discuss it. And it has been life-changing. We read Sam Chan last year in our Passion for Evangelism network with 90 women. And the comments were things like, right, Nay, I now know that I want to go and be on this group at school to help with the school. I want to be involved in what's happening as the school as a mum. I had students say, I want to go and join a sports club because I'm not in any societies at university at all. Had students say that they wanted to be more bold and courageous and invite friends to church and introduce their friends to Jesus through the scriptures. So I would recommend you choose one of these two books. Both are brilliant. Get some students and start reading and discussing together and just see what happens. Because we really need to focus on friendship. And as we do that, I'm convinced friends will start asking to read the Bible with their Christian friends, and Christians will get more courageous in talking about Jesus, both in conversation, but in inviting people to study the scriptures together. So we've thought a tiny bit about friendship, and to finish, I want us to think about public creative evangelism. I know there's a lot in here today. If you want to talk to Kenny or I or Becky at lunchtime about how this fits and some more questions, please do. I find this a really helpful diagram. We used it back in UCCF. Sorry if it's not completely clear. As we think about public creative evangelism, I want us to think about more than the mission weeks. I love the mission weeks. I've been at FOIA for 12, 13 years. I love them. But we need to think about more than that. We need to think about before the mission, after the mission. How do we follow people up? Not on a WhatsApp with a copy and paste message, but an individual invite like Jesus does himself. So I find this really helpful because what it does is it paints a picture of a year. So imagine a year at your university. Imagine the variety of things you could do to make Jesus known on campus. But done in a way that isn't just come to my talk and I'm going to tell you everything about Jesus. This is invitational. It raises curiosity and it helps people get drawn in. So let me just talk through this model, and I want you to think about your last year And in the last year, which of these have you seen happen at your university? Because I think if we're doing all of these, I'm not saying kill yourself, but if together we're doing all of these, you will see people draw closer to Jesus. Okay, so first of all, imagine this big marquee, this big tent or a big stadium. First of all, there's the meeting point. It's where you meet your friends outside. You say, we're going to watch this football match. Let's meet at the meeting point. Then you maybe go into the hospitality tent, get your drinks, get yourself ready for the football match, have a chat, have some food. And then you climb into the stadium and you watch from the back of the stands. You get a big overview. You're a bit anonymous. It's okay to get a big picture. Maybe you want to get a close-up selfie or photo of the football player, so you move on down to the front of the stands. You're more in the environment, in the atmosphere, in the crowd. And then you decide, actually, I'm really good at running the race or playing football. I'm going to train and be an athlete like Katie does, 5 a.m. every morning. And you go and get on the blocks, or you get in the pitch, and you become part of the race. Okay, so the basic picture is a stadium, a sports stadium. But let's think about what this means for both you as Christians wanting to run events and for those that are seeking to find out more about Jesus. So the top bubbles, you'll see the meeting point is someone saying, I don't know any Christians at all. So Shania last night, she didn't know any Christians at all. You need meeting points in your university that will reach someone like Shania. She's not coming saying, tell me the gospel, but she would be interested in friendship. She would be curious when someone gives her a flyer and offers her hot chocolate. So have you had any meeting points this year in your university? Have a reflect on that. What are the meeting points that you've had? The second one, the hospitality tent, is where people are starting to ask questions, saying things like, Christians are a bit weird, they're a bit strange, I don't belong here and I couldn't trust these people. So they're beginning to watch and question and think, what is this all about? Do I really fit? Does this make sense with the world? Then they move metaphorically onto the back of the stands and they start asking questions, but it's anonymous, it's welcoming, it's inviting. They can ask those questions, they're welcome to ask them, which is Katya's point, that Katya's study was a place that people felt safe to ask questions. That is a wonderful thing to provide. So questions like, is Christianity relevant? Why is there suffering? The gospel can't be true. Have you put on events that have allowed people to ask those questions? Or have you given a space on your campus to allow people to ask those questions? Or like Shania, is there a website that is regularly publicised by your Christian group where people can anonymously ask those questions? During lockdown, I heard of 3 Muslim women in our city who had been desperate for years to go to an Alpha course. They could not leave their homes because they're Muslims and their husbands wouldn't allow them to go to a church. You know what they did through the whole of lockdown? They went to my friend's Alpha course online in secret, in their bedroom on Zoom. They found out about Jesus. Like, they could never have done that in person. So I know we love like having a go at online stuff, but I don't. I just think God has worked through it powerfully. Are you giving people a space to ask those questions? And then as they begin to move to the front of the stands, like we heard from Shania last night, the questions become, the gospel isn't true. I'm a good person and people go to heaven, right? So it's more, is this actually true? Do I believe it? I'm not sure. I don't believe it anymore. Then maybe they begin to go on the blocks. This is making sense. The gospel is true. What should I do now? So have you created a space for front of the stands people this year? And have you created a space for people that genuinely want to know more? And this is where Seeker Bible Studies really come into their own, because they're relational, they're personal. It's not just ticking a form or sending a WhatsApp. You're saying, come and look at Jesus with me. And I want to learn from you, and you can learn from me, and we'll look at this together. So have you created a space for that? Because there will be people that want to know more. when we run a big mission week, you are the people that can say to the mission week organizer, look, I know what to do. This is my place. Can I organize some sort of seeker Bible study follow-up to the mission? I want to make sure that everyone that comes to an event has an opportunity to be on the blocks and ask those questions. I know how to do this. I've been trained. This is your role, okay? And then finally, people say, I'm in the race. I've found a church. I'm growing as a Christian. So have you got the people like Shania met who are willing to give out a gospel, write their email address, write the church name, and then meet this person in the church and introduce them to Jesus? There's so much here, isn't there? But this is where you want to go back and sit down with your groups and work out together. Let's look at a year of mission. If we're really serious, we want to be doing all of these things. We can't do it every week. We can't kill ourselves. But we also can't expect people just to come and say, read the Bible with me. Some do. I've seen that. But if we consider more this combination of creative public evangelism, so lots of meeting points, lots of hospitality tents, and then maybe just one or two back of the stands, front of the stands, then I think what you'll see is you'll have more and more people saying, can I find out more? And then you say, yes, and I'm ready, and I'm trained, and I have Seeker Bible Studies to do this with you. So it's really important we think about this both creatively and we think about it in terms of personal evangelism, friendship. So just have a little discuss. I think we're very nearly out of time. Which of these are you not doing and you've not seen in the last year? And which of these could you consider starting to do in the next year? So just turn to the person next to you and you've got a minute to discuss that. Which of these don't you do and which could you start doing?